If you're somebody that has issues with your joints, if you're overweight, if you're both, chances are you want to exercise, but you don't know which ones to do. You don't know how to do them. You don't know if it's good for you or bad for you. That's what I'm going to talk about in today's video. I'm also going to give, I actually come from that. So I'm going to give some examples of why I've come to these conclusions, how many years I've been doing this, and a couple other things. So this is Ryan over High Carb Generator. Welcome to my channel. So today I wanted to get started by kind of showing you a picture of my ankle the way it is now. I haven't shown this in a while. So the reason I know what I'm, where I'm coming from with this is I have been severely overweight. I've been over 400 pounds, probably 420 something. And I've had bad joints just because of issues with my pelvis, my knee, and a couple other things. I've got bad joints, so I know what it's like to have that. So most people like to go walking, but the one problem, or yoga, and the one thing with that is if you're overweight or if you have joint issues, chances are you don't walk correctly. And if you don't walk correctly, you're certainly not going to be able to do yoga correctly because things are kind of out of place. And if they aren't out of place, when you're really overweight and you kind of like do a forward fold, your gut or whatever is overweight, your legs or whatever, is going to push you out of a position enough that it's actually putting strain on your ligaments and your tendons and your joints. So going for a walk is great. I've done it. I did that when I was severely overweight, but afterwards I would be in a severe amount of pain. I did couch to 5K for a little while, and I was always having to do ice bath because I was always in pain. So I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I can't keep doing this. I tried all these kind of things. I would buy the like Hoka almost style shoes. That didn't help. I did barefoot. That did help, but it still didn't alleviate some of the issues that I was having. So I did yoga, and yoga was great, but I have a leg length discrepancy, which I kept rearing its ugly head. So I did yoga for about 2 years. I actually thought I was going to be an instructor in it, but I realized, and after going to the chiropractor, he's like, like the chiropractic business is almost kept in business by people who do yoga. And I can see why. Like, unless you are perfectly symmetrical, and I know there's different forms like yin yoga and everything where you can kind of change that around, but it wasn't working for me. So I tried rebounding. So rebounding, this is one of my two. Now, this isn't really an order of my favorite. This is just how it kind of transitioned. I had always ridden bike. I was always really into cycling. But when I was really overweight, I was probably at this point maybe 405 to 395, somewhere in that range. I forgot that I actually had bought previously a rebounder to kind of help aid with my weightlifting. So I came across some of these YouTube channels that they were talking about you can lose a lot of weight if you do rebounding. So I tried that, and that helped quite a bit. I wasn't sore afterwards, nowhere near as much as walking or running. And it was fun, right? It was fun. It was something, this took my weight. I didn't have to take all of my weight. I did very simple, very, very, very simple movements in the beginning. I just did a health bounce. And if you watch How Chris Beat Cancer, I think is the name of his channel, I believe that all he did really was to get rid of, that form of inflammation in his body, is he just did the health bounce. If I can find a video of the health bounce, I'll put it in here. It's a very simple up and down movement. You can even do it while you're sitting. You can do it. I think there's even been people who put the chair on the rebounder and sat while they did it if they were really in that bad of shape. And it's a very gentle movement, but it's very effective. Most people who are overweight are going to have I think all people who are overweight have an inflammation issue. And one of the best ways to do that is to start clearing your lymphatic system. And your lymphatic system will start, dumping into your small and large intestine. I think maybe it just dumps into your small intestine. And that stuff will start coming out of you, and you'll start noticing a lot of water weight coming off. So it's good to do that, but it's very important to stay in the real beginner phase when you're doing that, because otherwise you'll have, you know, a lot of die off, and I'm not going to go into that in this video, but it can cause a lot of bloating, a lot of pain. So start off very simply, whatever is easiest for you, even if you have to, I don't know, lay on it and just kind of just move up and down, that'll still clear the system out. So it's about clearing out the lymphatic system. It's about getting rid of the toxins in the tissues and, you know, rejuvenating yourself. So that is going to be one of the best ways to do it. Now, I do have an affiliate link down below for Cellar Sizer. If you'd like to go check that out, check it out. That is my favorite. I'm not going to talk about my favorites in this video of the rebounder. I will link a video right here. I've already done that a couple of times. So go watch that as to why I support the Cellar Sizer. And the other exercise, I guess I should point out the fact that I talked to the owner of Cellar Sizer, and I believe he said that up to 600 pounds can be supported by the Cellar Sizer, but I would have to contact him to really, like, if that's what I'm remembering correctly. And that brings me to the next one. So the next one is cycling, bike riding. That one is really good on the joints, but it doesn't alleviate the lymphatic system as much as rebounding. So if you are highly toxic, highly inflamed, highly just tight and everything, rebounding is definitely your way to go. If you are not overweight but you have joint issues, or if you're slightly overweight and just have joint issues, cycling is going to be your key. Now, I would 100% buy a bike that's fitted to your exact body style, and you go get a bike fit at a reputable place. I'm not going to talk about that in this video, and I don't even think I've made videos about that, but that is a very good place to start. And the reason I'm talking about this is because when I started riding, I lost a ton of weight. Like, between the rebounding and the cycling, those two by far, by a long country mile, other than the walking I did, but that was years ago, and that was way before I was, you know, extremely overweight. But cycling and rebounding by far are the two that helped me get from, you know, the 420s or whatever I was at down to, like, basically 200 pounds off. And the reason I talk about cycling is because I actually read a story. I had a hard time. I'm still having a hard time finding it. I did want to link it down below, but I haven't been able to find it. There was this man who was over 600 pounds in Minneapolis, and he got tired of it. He couldn't even get in his car anymore, but he wanted to lose weight. I don't even think he changed his diet at all. But he had this idea, if he could get all of his shopping done and all of his just running around done on a bike, maybe he would lose weight. And I think, if I'm remembering it correctly, he got on a traditional bike and it couldn't handle that amount of weight, and the seat post flew down. So he contacted somebody about building him a bike. And this guy's like, I'll build you a bike. This is definitely not going to be, you know, a light bike. This is not going to be one of those bikes that you're going to win any races with, but it'll hold your amount of weight. I think it was built out of titanium or some, you know, something like that. And this guy was over 600 pounds. And if I remember correctly, he got himself down to about 185 pounds just by riding the bike. Now, when I rode my bike back in Pennsylvania, back in just north of Philadelphia, I would go out for long hours. I would go for like 40, 50, 60 mile rides, and I was losing some weight. And then I got transferred into a different post office position, and I was going to have longer hours. Like, when I was doing that, my hours were usually like 4 a.m. to like noon or 1 p.m. So it was like that 7 to 8 hour shift. And then I got a job where it was actually a little bit better hours. I think I was working like 8 to 4, 6 days a week or something like that. But that cut out a lot of my riding time. So I decided I was going to start riding to work, and I would just ride to get my groceries whenever I could, or I'd ride to get just utilitarian stuff. And that is actually when I lost the most amount of weight. I lost way more weight when I was just riding to go to work, when I was just riding to go get my groceries, when I was just riding to go get, I don't know, actually a couple times I rode and got pickup because they started making vegan restaurants on my way home from work. and I would bring a rack. I had a rack on the bike, and I would bring panniers and like a bike bag, and I had one in the front, and I could just load it up. And that is actually when I started losing the most significant amount of weight. I mean, it really started coming off to the point where I was getting a little worried. I've had a couple times that this happened where I was losing so much weight that I was like a little leery of it. So I backed off. Unfortunately, I backed off a little too hard, but I'm not going to talk about that in this one. And my joints never hurt. So in review, and another thing is, if you're just riding normal pace like that, when you're not riding, to do a 40 or 50, 60-mile ride, you're riding at more of a like fat burning phase. You're just riding to go to the store. You're just riding to go get, whatever. And you want to stay in that zone where you're just using fat stores as your fuel source. Once you start, it's kind of like the harder you're working, the hotter you're burning. And the hotter you're burning, the more carbohydrates that you're burning. And you really don't want to do that. You want to burn the fat stores. So the fat stores are kind of the cold storage, if you want to look at it like that, and the carbohydrates are the heat storage. So when you think of like an all-out sprint, like a 100-meter dash, that's pure carbohydrates. But if you think of like walking a 5K, that's purely almost purely fat. I think that has a big effect on it too, and that's another reason I like the Cellerciser. You rarely, or whatever rebounder you might have, the Cellerciser for me, it's very hard to actually get to the point where you are just gasping for air, and I think that is one of the main reasons that using a Cellerciser or whatever rebounder you might have is going to be the most efficient at burning fat. It takes maybe a little bit longer than you would like, but I've talked about Mike Menzer on this channel before, and when he used to have people or himself losing weight, he would tell everybody to have it a conversational. Like if you were walking or even jogging or whatever, if you can't have a conversation anymore, if you're on the bike or on the trampoline, if you can't have a conversation, and not a winded conversation, just a conversation, you're doing it too hard and you're burning carbohydrates, and that's completely counterproductive, because people, they want to torture themselves for whatever reason, but the lighter the exercise, the more effective it actually is at burning fat. You ever notice how there's these women out there, mostly women that I see, they're out walking their dog, maybe the husband's at work or whatever, and they're out walking the dog, taking care of the kids and all that, if it's in a traditional household. And they are always slender. And, I know they're on the run a lot, but they're just gingerly walking. They're not out there killing themselves. Now, I know there's a lot of women who do that, and I've seen, even women who are pregnant trying to deadlift like 400 pounds. I'm like, what are you doing? But by and large, you just see them gingerly walking. They're out there just walking their dog, or just out there taking a walk, or just out there, just doing light yard work or something like that. And that keeps people very effectively under, at a perfect weight, under, not getting obese. So that is my video. Hopefully it did you some good. Comments, questions down below like always. But again, my number one, I guess I would rate it a little higher than cycling, is the Cellerciser, just because if it's too much, if you're out on a long bike ride and all of a sudden you realize that you've done too much, you still got to get yourself back. But if you did like maybe a little bit too much on the Cellerciser, you could just step off and you're already at your house. I like that. Or if people are terrified to ride in traffic these days because everybody's staring at the phones anymore, zombie driving, you might not want to be out there for that. So that's another reason the Cellerciser is good. I think Dave Hall says, why play out when you can play in, or something like that. It is very true with that, and especially we're coming into winter, you might not want to deal with the crazy snow or whatever you might get. Cellerciser works. Anyway, that's what I have to say about it. That's my experience with having crazy joint and everything else, and being overweight. Anyway, like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next one.